Hello, my dear friend listening to me from the other side of the screen. Sit here with me for a moment. Look closely at my face, at the marks of time on my skin. What do you see? Perhaps you see a lady at peace, but behind this calm, there is a story that many tried to bury. Today, I've decided I won't keep it inside anymore. I need to tell you what happened 47 years ago, something that started with pure love and turned into a battlefield. Have you ever felt like the whole world was against you, just for being who you are? My name is Mary, and the story I'm going to tell you today isn't just about a marriage of nearly 5 decades. It's about the day hatred tried to defeat destiny, and about the secret my mother-in-law carried to her grave. It all started in the suburbs of Ohio in the 1970s. Victor and I were neighbors. He was a young man with kind eyes and a wealthy family. I was a young black woman with dreams bigger than the segregation that still hung in the air. We were friends. We went to parties. We danced to the music of the time. But there was a shadow between us. I knew what his family thought of people like me. I resisted, my dear audience. I told Victor, "They will never accept me. This will destroy you." But Victor was a giant. He looked me in the eyes and said the words that would change everything. "They don't need to know right now. My love for you doesn't ask anyone's permission." And it was there, in that secret, that our nightmare and our victory began. The first big blow came on our wedding day. Can you imagine the day that should be the happiest of your life turning into a symbolic funeral? His family refused to sign the papers. His father, an influential man in town, said Victor was staining the family blood. They didn't go to the church. There was no toast, no mother's hug. We married alone, under the disapproving gaze of an entire town. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what my mother-in-law, Catherine, told me when she found out I was pregnant with my first child. Those words remained tattooed on my soul for decades. She looked at me with a contempt that chilled my blood and said, "I will never accept this mistake. I don't go around carrying black grandchildren." Can you feel the weight of that? A grandmother denying a child's existence before they were even born. Victor suffered in silence. There were nights, my friend, when the tension was so great in his parents' house, where we tried a desperate reconciliation, that he preferred to sleep in his car, in the cold, just so he wouldn't have to see me humiliated inside that cold, luxurious dining room. He chose the cold asphalt over hearing his own father insult me. Every 3 minutes of that life, it seemed a new revelation emerged. We discovered they tried to bribe the registry office to annul our union. We found out that close friends carried gossip to try and separate Victor from me, offering him girls from good families while I took care of our babies. But I made a decision. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to fight the only way a mother knows how, through dignity. I decided my children would be so brilliant, so polite, and so successful that their prejudice would have nowhere to hide. The tension in our house was constant. Victor carried a grief that aged his face 10 years in just 2. The antagonist wasn't just my mother-in-law. It was an entire system represented by that woman with the pearl necklace and the heart of stone. But you know what? The world keeps turning, and God's fingerprint never fails. He made us different to test how much we are capable of loving what is not the same as us. The turning point was about to happen, and no one, not even the terrible Catherine, was prepared for what fate had in store for those 2 grandchildren she so despised. Look, if you stopped at this video, maybe it's because your heart also has scars that no one sees. My name is Mary. I'm 70 years old today. And what if I told you that the man who has slept by my side for nearly half a century was almost torn from me by hate? I lived in a small town in Ohio. Victor was my neighbor. You know that childhood friendship that turns into love without us realizing it? Well, that was us. We went to parties, danced, laughed, but I was afraid. I am black, and his family thought skin color defined a person's value. I said, "Victor, it won't work. They'll destroy us." And he, in his stubborn way, told me, "Mary, we don't need them. You are my world." Do you know what it's like to marry and not have your father-in-law's signature on the paper? Do you know what it's like to walk into a church and see the groom's family pews empty? They abandoned us right there at the altar. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when I got pregnant. I will never forget the day my mother-in-law, Catherine, looked at my belly and said, in a cold voice I can still feel today, "I don't accept it. I'm not going to go around carrying a black grandchild." Right there, my world fell apart. Victor? My Victor suffered so much he ended up sleeping in the car, in the cold, just to avoid having to choose between defending me and fighting with his own mother. It was years of humiliation, secrets, and doors slamming in our faces. But I decided one thing. I wasn't leaving. I was going to show that woman that the blood running through my children's veins has the same value as hers. Stay here with me, because what happened next, the way the world turned and how that woman had to look me in the eye 40 years later, that is something you need to hear, so you never give up on your love. God made us different, with fingerprints that no one else has, precisely because He didn't want anyone to be the same as anyone else. And today, I'm going to tell you how the love of an unwanted neighbor defeated the racism of an entire family. Our first years of marriage, which should have been our honeymoon with life, were actually a survival test. We lived in a simple little house in Ohio, far from the luxurious neighborhoods where Victor's family lived. He worked double shifts so we wouldn't lack anything, since his father, in a gesture of pure malice, cut off all financial help or inheritance as soon as he signed the papers with me. Victor would come home exhausted, hands dirty with grease or calloused from hard labor. But what weighed most wasn't the physical fatigue. It was the silence of the phone. It was knowing that just a few miles away, a Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner was happening, and we were the only lepers of the family, forbidden from crossing the threshold of that house. I saw Victor cry secretly in the bathroom. He missed his brothers, he missed his father, but he never, not for a moment, blamed me. On the contrary, there was a night I'll never forget. There was a birthday party for his mother, Catherine. Victor thought that after a year of marriage, her heart might have softened. He bought a gift, a beautiful brooch, and we went there. When we parked the car in front of that mansion, I felt a chill. Victor got out, but before he could ring the bell, his father came out the side door. He didn't even look at me inside the car. He pointed his finger at Victor and said, "If you come in with that woman, you no longer have a father." Victor tried to speak, tried to give the gift, but his father simply turned his back and locked the door. Victor got back in the car in silence. He started the engine but couldn't drive. He leaned his forehead against the steering wheel and sobbed like a child. It was then that he started sleeping in the car some nights. Not because we fought, but because he would wander the city, processing the pain of being rejected by those who brought him into the world. He said he needed air, that the weight of that grief suffocated him within 4 walls. Then came the news. I was pregnant. My heart leapt with joy, but fear soon followed. What would it be like to raise a child in a world that already hated them before they were even born? When our children arrived, first Anthony and then Sarah, their beauty was breathtaking. They had Victor's eyes and my color. They were the perfect blend of our love. But Catherine, oh, that woman had a heart of stone. When she heard of the birth, she sent a message through a cousin. "Tell Victor I don't want photos of those children on my mantle. I don't go around carrying black grandchildren." That tore me apart inside. I looked at my babies, so pure, and I didn't understand how anyone could hate a miracle. I looked at Victor and said, "Enough. We are not going to beg for crumbs of love anymore. If they don't want our children, they don't deserve our story." I decided at that moment that my revenge would be education. I was going to raise the best human beings that town had ever seen. I was going to teach them that a man's value lies in character, not in the acceptance of those who live in the shadows of prejudice. Victor agreed. We started working together. I did sewing for others. I cooked to sell, and he worked 3 jobs. We saw each other little, but when we did, it was to reaffirm that it would all be worth it. We were a fortress. Before I tell you how my children grew up and what happened the day my mother-in-law finally came face to face with them, I want to ask you something. If you believe that love should defeat any prejudice, like this video now and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the continuation of this story of overcoming. Your subscription helps take this message of faith to more people. The years passed like a hurricane of work and silence. While Victor's family lived for appearances in their high society parties, we lived for essence. Victor and I made a pact. Inside our house, their grandmother's racism would have no home. My children, Anthony and Sarah, grew up hearing that they were capable of conquering the world, not despite their color, but with all the pride of it. I remember every night I sat at the kitchen table, the light low to save energy, helping Anthony with math and Sarah with literature. I told them, my loves, you need to be twice as good, not to prove anything to that family, but so that no one can ever say you don't deserve the place where you are. Victor stood firm. He became an example of a man, even with the deep grief he carried. And look, Mary, even today he gets emotional when he talks about it. He never failed to have a smile for his children. There was one time when Anthony, still small, asked, "Daddy, why does Grandma Catherine never come to see us?" Victor knelt to his level, eyes misty, and said, "Son, some people have sick hearts and can't see the beauty of flowers, but we are an entire garden. We face difficult situations in Ohio. In school, sometimes prejudice appeared in subtle ways, but I was there, head held high at every parent-teacher meeting. I wore my best dress, simple but impeccable, and spoke with a clarity that left the teachers impressed. I wanted them to see that the black woman Miller's son chose was a queen raising princes, and the effort bore fruit. Oh, how it did. Anthony excelled in sports and studies. He won a full scholarship to one of the best law schools. Sarah? She had the voice of an angel and a mind for science that left everyone speechless. She became a doctor. The town started talking. People who used to turn their faces away from us at the market now came to ask me, "Mary, how did your children get so far?" And I would just smile and reply, "With love and God's fingerprint, who makes no one the same as anyone else." Meanwhile, Victor's family began to crumble. Catherine's other grandchildren, raised in luxury and arrogance, were involved in scandals, legal problems, and a general lack of interest in life. The pure lineage she defended so much was full of cracks. And that's when fate prepared the first big piece of the puzzle. There was an award ceremony in town where Anthony was to be honored as the Young Lawyer of the Year. All the big shots would be there. Victor was radiant but nervous. He knew his parents would also be present. I prepared myself as if for a duel. I put on a necklace Victor gave me with the sweat of 3 jobs, and we went. When we entered that luxurious hall, silence fell for a second. There I was, the woman they tried to erase, walking in arm with the man they kicked out. Catherine was sitting at a corner table. She looked smaller, older, bitter. When Anthony took the stage and began to speak about the importance of family and resilience, mentioning how his father had been a hero for choosing love over inheritance, I saw her hand tremble. She tried to look away but couldn't. The light coming from my son was too strong for the darkness of her heart. That day, Victor didn't need to sleep in the car. That night, we went home with the certainty that our struggle was just beginning to reap the laurels of justice. But the final confrontation, the one that would change Catherine's life forever, was still to come. Time is an implacable judge, Mary. It doesn't just run, it teaches. While my children shone and built their own families with the same values of respect that Victor and I taught, the great Miller mansion in Ohio began to sink into a deep and melancholy silence. Victor's father passed away suddenly, leaving Catherine alone in that immense house, surrounded by expensive paintings and memories of a pride that no longer served to warm the cold nights. Her other grandchildren, the ones she displayed like trophies, rarely appeared. One was involved with addictions in Europe. The other barely spoke to her because of disputes over an inheritance that hadn't even arrived yet. Catherine's perfect lineage had become a collection of empty hearts. Then, her health gave way. A serious heart problem took her to the most renowned hospital in the state. And here, my dear audience, is where you see that God writes straight with lines we can't even imagine. Do you know who the attending doctor on the cardiology team at that hospital was? Yes, my Sarah. The granddaughter Catherine said she would never hold because she didn't go around with black grandchildren. Fate placed Catherine's life in the hands of the granddaughter she tried to erase from existence. Victor heard about the hospitalization, and his heart of gold, which could never truly hate, tightened. He looked at me and said, "Mary, I need to go there. She's my mother. But I won't go if you aren't by my side." I took a deep breath. I remembered every time I was humiliated, the nights he slept in the car, the cruel words, but I looked at my hands and saw they were clean. I wasn't like her. We went to the hospital. When we entered that white, silent room, Catherine looked like a shadow of what she once was. She was pale, connected to machines. When she opened her eyes and saw Victor, a tear ran down. But when she saw me right behind him, her gaze changed. It wasn't hate anymore. It was shame. It was the weight of 40 years of injustice falling on her shoulders all at once. At that moment, the door opened and Sarah walked in a white coat, stethoscope around her neck, and a posture that exuded competence and authority. She didn't enter as the rejected granddaughter. She entered as Dr. Sarah Miller, the professional who would take care of that lady. The silence in the room was so heavy you could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Catherine looked at Sarah, then at me, then at Victor. She couldn't articulate a word. Sarah, with a delicacy that made me proud, held the hand of that grandmother who never gave her a sweet, never told her a story, and said, "Stay calm, Mrs. Miller. We are going to take care of you. You are in good hands." Those words were like a dagger of kindness in Catherine's chest. She began to sob. It wasn't a cry of physical pain. It was the cry of someone who realized she had spent her whole life hating a treasure. Victor approached the bed and held her other hand. For a moment, time stopped. I stood there, at the foot of the bed, watching the scene. I didn't feel pleasure in her suffering, Mary. I felt peace. The peace of someone who planted love in the middle of a desert of prejudice and saw the flower bloom where no one believed it could. Catherine spent 2 weeks under Sarah's care. And in that period, something miraculous happened. The barrier of racism, which seemed like an iron wall, began to melt before my daughter's dignity and Victor's constant presence, as he never abandoned her. There was an afternoon when I was alone in the room with her while Victor had gone to get coffee. Catherine called me with a very weak voice. I approached. She looked at me with very tired eyes and said the words I had waited nearly 5 decades for. "Mary, I was blind. I threw away the best years of my life because I couldn't see what was right in front of me." After that afternoon in the hospital, the ice surrounding Catherine's heart didn't just melt, it evaporated. She was discharged, but she was no longer the same arrogant woman who used to walk down the stairs of the Ohio mansion with her nose in the air. She was a broken woman who finally understood that the luxury of her house was cold, and that the warmth she needed was in the family she had so despised. Victor, with that kindness that made me fall in love with him 47 years ago, suggested something that took my breath away. "Mary, she can't stay in that mansion alone. She has no one. The other grandchildren only show up to ask for money. What do you think about bringing her close to us?" I confess to you, my audience, that my heart raced. I remembered every tear, every time Victor slept in the car, every insult. But then I looked at my children, Anthony, a brilliant lawyer, and Sarah, the doctor who saved that woman's life. I realized that if I said no, I would be just like her, and I fought my whole life to be different. We brought her, not into our house, but to a smaller house right next to ours, so we could take care of her. And it was there, in the day-to-day, that the transformation was completed. Catherine began to see what she had lost. She saw Anthony arrive from court and hug his father with an admiration that no money can buy. She saw Sarah bring the great-grandchildren, beautiful children, with skin golden by the sun and smiles that lit up the street, to play in the garden. There was a Sunday during a family lunch in our backyard, that typical American barbecue with corn, ribs, and lots of laughter, when Catherine asked to speak. She was sitting in her rocking chair, watching the children run. Silence fell over the table. She looked at Anthony and Sarah and, with a choked voice, said in front of all the neighbors and friends, "I spent decades saying I didn't want to carry grandchildren like you. And today, I realize you are the 2 best grandchildren a woman could have. I don't deserve your love, but I thank God for not taking me before I saw how wrong I was." Victor cried. He cried the tears of 47 years of grief that finally left his chest. He was no longer the rejected son. He was the man who kept the family together when everything was blowing toward disaster. During this period, the neighborhood that used to look at us sideways began to see our family as a pillar of strength. We were no longer the couple who faced the Miller family. We were the millers who made it. I raised my children to be giants, Mary, and they became so big they were larger than any prejudice. I saw Catherine try to make up for lost time, trying to learn the recipes I made, wanting to know about my history, the history of my people, the history she tried to ignore. But what touched me most was seeing Victor at peace. He still feels the pain of the past, that scar of being kicked out of the house by his father. But today, when he looks at me at the dinner table, he squeezes my hand and whispers, "It was worth it, Mary." Every night in the car, every closed door, it was worth it to have you and to see that love won. The message that remains from this phase of our life is that there's no use trying to mold others. No one is the same as anyone else. Trying to force the world to be your way only brings loneliness. Happiness only came to Catherine when she learned to yield, to accept difference, and to understand that God's fingerprint is unique in each of us. Today, when I sit on the porch and see the sun setting on the Ohio horizon, I look at Victor. He's there, tending the roses in the garden, a bit more bent by the weight of the years, but with the same sparkle in his eyes that enchanted me when we were just two neighbors afraid of the future. 47 years have passed, almost half a century of a life many said wouldn't last a week. Catherine passed away a few years ago. She departed in peace, holding Sarah's hand and mine. In the end, there was no more color, no more lineage, no more hate. There was only a tired woman who found forgiveness in the arms of those she tried hardest to hurt. She left us the mansion, but you know what? We sold it and used the money to create a scholarship foundation for young people who, like Victor and me, face barriers to achieving their dreams. The money that was once a symbol of exclusion today serves to open doors. You know, my dear audience, I told this story not to exalt my pain, but to speak about the victory of patience and education. Often, we want to retaliate hate with hate, but I learned that dignified silence and hard work are the loudest answers you can give to those who humiliate you. When I look at my children and grandchildren, I see God's hand in every detail. I think about what I said at the beginning. God, when He made the whole world, took care to give each of us a different fingerprint. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Billions of people, and no one has the same finger pattern as you. What did God mean by that? He meant that beauty is in difference. He meant that no one is the same as anyone else, and that trying to mold others to fit your prejudice is fighting against divine creation itself. It's no use one trying to force the other to be what they are not. The secret to 47 years of a happy marriage in the midst of so much war was knowing how to yield. It was understanding that Victor had his wounds and I had mine, and that together we were a new, unique design. Does the grief still hurt sometimes in my husband's chest? Yes, it does. They were deep scars, but he tells me himself every night before bed, "Mary, it was worth it. It was worth every cold night inside that car, every sideways glance on the street, every hidden tear. It was worth it because today we have each other. We have a family that respects one another, and we have the clear conscience of those who never needed to step on anyone to be great." To you who are listening to me now and perhaps going through an injustice, or hearing that you aren't good enough, or that your love is a mistake, look at me. Don't give up. Raise your children with love. Keep your head held high and trust in God's fingerprint. God's time is not ours, but His justice does not fail. It arrives, sometimes in a hospital bed, sometimes on a graduation stage, but it arrives. Today, Victor and I are living testimony that love has no color, no social class, and no fear. We are just two souls who chose to be different together. If the story of Mary and Victor touched your heart today, don't leave without leaving a comment. Write which city you are watching us from and leave an amen if you believe that love conquers any prejudice. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this and turn on the bell. Until next time.